So, in the previous video we went over everything we know about the Seraphites, or the religious cult, in The Last of Us Part 2. But this video, which is the second part of the Seraphites miniseries, is going to be a little more relaxed and more discussion focused. Hey everyone, my name is the iPad Cat, and in today's video I wanted to discuss why I think the inclusion of this cult could possibly be a problem. Please note that this is all based on my opinion and nothing else. I love The Last of Us. It's my favorite game of all time, and I'm not trying to hate on part 2 or say that it's gonna be a bad game. It's the Naughty Gods, for heaven's sake. But without further ado, let's get started. So, I think the cult could quote-unquote be a problem? Why? Well, it's not what you may think. I don't think Naughty Dog are treading ground they shouldn't be by bringing religion into The Last of Us. Not at all. I think artists should be allowed to express things however they like. Although I might not always agree with what the artist does, I respect their right to do it. I know religion is a touchy subject for many, but not for me. No, what makes me worried about, or worried is not the right word, but what makes me scratch my head a bit over the Seraphites is that I can't quite say they feel like The Last of Us. Now what do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, it's a gut feeling. But I just feel like a cult doesn't translate to the philosophy Naughty Dog had in the first game, that every faction you meet should just be normal people dealing with surviving, and the new world in a different way. Now don't get me wrong, a cult is definitely possible in the world of The Last of Us. I mean, in the real world people turn to cults when they feel there is no longer hope, or that they are in a turning point in their life. Something I'm sure many people felt as the world collapsed in The Last of Us. So the mere existence of a cult isn't unconvincing, but it's the real people part. Everyone, even David's group of cannibals, felt like real people in The Last of Us. People who, no matter how much you disagreed with, you could in some shape or form relate to or understand. The military and Fedra were tyrannical and brutal, but ultimately their motive was to keep things as stable as possible. Now you might not agree with their methods, but you definitely could understand their reasons. The military faction is convincing. The hunters in Pittsburgh may have drenched the fleeing soldiers in gasoline and burned them alive, murdered their Firefly comrades, and probably killed all the women and children in the city. But they rose up toward a tyrannical leadership to get freedom, and they don't want anybody to drag them down so that they can survive in the brutal new world. The hunter faction is convincing. The cannibals at Lakeside may have shot at Joel and Ellie on sight at the university. They may murder people and eat their flesh, but in the end, they consist of families. They have children to feed, and food is scarce. The cannibal faction is convincing. The Fireflies may have beaten Joel down and threatened to kill him, and they may have been prepared to kill a 14-year-old girl. But they were desperate. They had been getting thinned out by the military for months, and couldn't risk any stranger getting close to them. And they were prepared to kill that 14-year-old because she might have been humanity's only hope for a cure. The Firefly faction is convincing. The Seraphites cut people open while fanatically repeating religious phrases. They string the corpses to trees and lampposts, and they crush people's arms with hammers. But why? How does it help them survive? How does it help humanity? What is their ultimate goal? Is it just for fun? Now, I know how Neil has said that this cult will be humanized and be more on the grayscale in the final game, but I just don't see how we'll be able to relate to them. I talk about how factions are convincing, and this is because I don't think things have to be realistic in The Last of Us for it to be immersive. But they have to be convincing. If you want to know more about my thoughts on immersion and what makes The Last of Us good, you can watch my video on that here. However, maybe I feel it'll be hard to relate to these Seraphites because I myself don't care much for religion, and other people who do will be more able to understand their motivations. But maybe you understand now what I'm getting at. Look, in the end I know, this is Naughty Dog. They never disappoint, so I'm sure it'll all work out. But anyways, those are just some of my thoughts on the Seraphites and why I think they potentially could be a quote-unquote problem. What do you think? Do you agree with my points? Disagree? Do you think the Seraphites will be a good faction in The Last of Us Part 2? Tell me in the comments down below and let's discuss it. And until next time, have a great day.